Welcome to today's team selection video. Now, I have already sold Erling Haaland this week and brought in Matheus Cunha. I'm looking to get Bukayo Saka in the midfield, but the question is, who do I captain? Well, let's take a look at how my squad could line up ahead of that Game Week 13 deadline. Starting off with the goalkeeper and defenders, I'm going to kick things off with my double Arsenal defence, David Raya and Gabriel. So last game week against Forest, they had an expected goals conceded of 0.33. I felt as though defensively and as a collective team and a unit, I think they were a lot better on the ball, without the ball, a lot more calm, and it just seemed that Arsenal were back in business. They had that recent drop in form. I feel as though with Odegaard back into the squad now, things are slightly going to settle down for Arsenal for this good run of fixtures. So double Arsenal defence for me for the foreseeable future is really, really nice to have. I do believe that this game week isn't going to be as easy of a clean sheet as we probably expect it to be. Obviously, there's a few reasons for that, and I'll explain them just now. Of course, home fixtures for Arsenal this season in particular, they've only had an expected goals conceded of 4.5. Whereas when you look away from home, that number jumps up to 7.7. Of course, that is normally the case for many teams in the Premier League, but there is a slight drop-off when Arsenal go away from home. Now, for me, I wanted to speak a little bit about West Ham now, because, of course, we noticed, especially in the last fixture for West Ham, they had a little bit more about them. They've just beat Newcastle away from home. They're now going home to face Arsenal. I feel as though there's going to be a lot of fire in this fixture. There's going to be a lot of potential for West Ham to get the crowd behind them and give it a really good go. Of course, West Ham have been really poor this season. I'm hoping that they continue to be poor in this Arsenal fixture. You know, a lot of the time without the ball. Of course, Arsenal like to keep the ball quite a lot. Very defensive performances from Arsenal recently as well. But, yeah, I'm not sure I expect a clean sheet as much as I did in previous weeks. But still, Arsenal defence for me, really good option going forward. Robinson, I want to just quickly show you a graphic from Fantasy Football Hub, just a heat map, because, yes, his attacking data, when we look at it here, of course, isn't fantastic. We don't have too much to go off every single week, and it is a little bit disappointing because I did think Robinson would be a bit more attacking than this, but the heat map is pretty promising. All it takes from Robinson to get an attack and return, in my opinion, is when he gets high on that left-hand side, is just cross it in. When he does that, he's had an assist previously in this Premier League season by doing the same thing. So for me, there's always a chance of Robinson potentially going for that attack and return, but just because of how high he is up on the pitch at times, it is really promising to see as a Robinson owner. His fixtures do start to turn coming up soon. Brighton in 14 and Southampton in 17 are probably the only games I'm planning to play Robinson in these coming weeks, which I think is completely fine. There is a chance that I could sell him on, but I feel as though I'd rather improve my bench here, such as Nedeljkovic, up to someone like Trent in the next few weeks with all that spare Haaland money, and it would really overall improve my side. Vandenberg, I'm going to quickly finish off speaking with here. Look, Leicester, as a newly promoted side, I think have done quite well in terms of scoring goals. When you think about it, Newcastle and Man United both haven't scored as many goals as Leicester this Premier League season, which you wouldn't necessarily expect coming from a newly promoted Leicester side. Last week, of course, Brentford keeping a clean sheet against an Everton side who was struggling to score, whereas we're going into a week now where, look, Leicester are scoring goals. They're not exactly the most attacking, goal-scoring team out there, but I feel as though it's going to be a slightly harder game than Brentford had last game week. I'm hoping Vandenberg pulls through. He was just kind of a player that I bought to enable the Haaland and Salah draft last week, but plans change. Haaland, for me, just isn't worth the money. I suppose we'll speak about that later on when we get to the forward section of the video. But just a quick end bit to this defender section. Rico Lewis on the bench. Of course, Manchester City. Do I need to say much more about that? Yeah, we all know what's going on there. Defensively, I don't think any of the options for Manchester City are viable at the moment, especially when you've got Liverpool away from home. We've just seen what Liverpool did to Real Madrid. What can they do to Manchester City? So, yeah, overall with the defence, I am pretty pleased going into game week 13 here with what I have. I'm expecting quite a lot from the Arsenal boys, maybe a clean sheet from Vandenberg. Moving on up now to the midfielders in my FPL team, I think a good place to start is with Mohamed Salah, my potential FPL captain this game week with Manchester City at home. This game is just going to be absolutely fantastic. I feel as though it could go kind of two ways. I'm really not expecting Manchester City to perform whatsoever against Liverpool. What I expect kind of to happen is either it's a really dull game with very minimal attacks, sort of a 1 or 2-0 to Liverpool, perhaps even a draw 1-1, who even knows. But for me, I think the most likely outcome of this fixture is a big Liverpool win. We're looking at 2, 3 or 4 goals to Liverpool because it's really easy to see where Manchester City are going wrong recently in the last few weeks, and it's mainly defensively. I think attacking-wise, Manchester City, yes, the output has been slightly decreased in terms of chances going forward, but the chances are still there for Manchester City. It's defensively where they're really, really, really worrying me, because we've seen it exposed, especially against Spurs. On transition, Manchester City simply cannot handle any team in the Premier League. They simply cannot. We've just seen it in the Champions League. They just threw away a 3-goal lead to draw 3-3. There are serious problems in Manchester City. And if Pep doesn't change something with how he plays, or potentially even the personnel on the pitch, on transition, Manchester City will get murdered by Liverpool. There needs to be a big change by Pep. I perhaps am expecting something different for this Liverpool fixture, and that makes me slightly more hesitant towards captain Mohamed Salah. But on transition, Liverpool are absolutely fantastic. So for me, Mohamed Salah is a great captaincy option this game week. He's just about first in terms of my captaincy pecking order, and I'll kind of go through that when we get to the forwards at the end of the video. But Mohamed Salah, I think, is a really great captaincy option this game week. Possibly another captaincy shout as well, just next to him, Cole Palmer. I feel as though Aston Villa haven't exactly proved they're a decent defence, or not a decent defence, a solid defence. I think they are quite leaky. There are times where I look at their defence and I think, yeah, actually, you know what, they're actually pretty decent. It's mainly Martinez that kind of keeps them in games, I feel. A little bit sloppy at the back sometimes, but Palmer for me, over the last few weeks, obviously blanking in a few fixtures, hasn't been exactly great for my rank and overall commitment to Cole Palmer. But when we look at the full run of fixtures coming up for Chelsea, I don't think he's a sell. I think you've just got to hold, because Cole Palmer is a player that can haul any given week. Against any team, he can go ahead, score 2, assist 1, score a hat-trick. Just, he's unbelievable. He's such a good footballer, and I think having that type of player with the fixtures long term is going to be fantastic. I'm not necessarily going to captain him or have him as an option to captain. I do think it's a decent option, but for me, I do think Salah is a slightly better pick there. Mbeumo, Leicester at home. Look, I think Mbeumo in the last few weeks has been disappointing. Not a lot of output in terms of shots on goal. You know, the positions he was holding are quite wide at times. Perhaps that's something, perhaps that's a cause of the, the reduced output of Mbeumo. But I think I've got to give him this fixture. I would like to give him the next 3 fixtures as well. We have Leicester, Aston Villa away from home, then Newcastle at home. I feel as though Newcastle at home is actually not a bad fixture for Mbeumo. So I would like to keep him possibly for those 3 fixtures, but I feel as though next week is a prime time to jump away from Mbeumo, but perhaps next week I would look to get Trent in my FPL team. So, yeah, we'll consider that as we go down the line. We'll speak about Rodgers quickly here because, yes, he hasn't been fantastic in recent weeks in terms of FPL points, but I feel as though he is getting decent minutes. The fixtures are about to swing for him. for a very brief amount of time, I do have to say, though. I'll just show you on my second monitor here. Because we have Chelsea away this week, which, yes, isn't a fantastic fixture, but when we move to Brentford at home, Southampton at home, Forest away, things do look slightly better for Morgan Rogers. So I don't mind keeping him as that sort of cheaper asset. What I would like to do potentially is keep Semenyo and then sell Morgan Rogers. But the way my team's kind of set out, and the sad reality is that, you know, Semenyo isn't going to be playing this game week in particular, that I'm going to have to sell Semenyo this week. And the player to come in for Semenyo here is going to be Bukayo Saka. I haven't made that move yet, and you obviously can see that on the graphic. And the reason for that is because I'm going to have to take a -4 for this move to get Bukayo Saka, which I'm completely comfortable doing, because I think Bukayo Saka, until around game week 19, is a fantastic pick. So for me, I want to kind of get as much information as possible from that move. Because, look, imagine Salah is injured. Imagine we see Mo Salah, for some reason, gets injured in training. What do I do then if I've already brought in Bukayo Saka? Take another hit? Look, I've got to get as much information as possible. I think information is the best way to play FPL. I sold Erling Haaland early this week because I just really wasn't feeling him. I think if I was a little bit more patient, I would have liked to keep him a little bit more time just to get that information. The information we ended up getting is Manchester City scoring 3, conceding 3. So, yeah, I think it was the right move. But, yeah, that's why I haven't moved to Bukayo Saka yet. But he is my proposed transfer. Semenyo out, Bukayo Saka in. Finishing off my FPL team here with the 2 forwards. The cherries on top of the cake, Matheus Cunha and João Pedro. I think we'll start off with Matheus Cunha here because they have that Bournemouth at home fixture. Of course, Brighton have just played Bournemouth away from home. So perhaps there are some interchangeable points here. Matheus Cunha, look, for me, in his position in the Premier League right now, there are not a lot of players that can be doing what he is doing. His output is simply fantastic for Wolves, and I'm honestly super excited to own him for the coming weeks. For about 5 to 6 game weeks, his fixtures do look really, really nice. So, yeah, yes, he's a bit more of an expensive pick now because I have waited, 2-3 weeks to bring in Matheus Cunha. I give Haaland another few chances, which I definitely shouldn't have done. But now I have him in the squad. Now I'm very happy to own him. I think this fixture in particular, we've seen what Brighton did to Bournemouth away from home. Of course, João Pedro being a massive catalyst in that game, scoring and assisting in particular. So maybe we see something similar from Matheus Cunha. Maybe a few more assists than goals this game week. I think defensively, Bournemouth show us glimpses of fantastic defending, but then that split second, something happens and things just fall apart. So I think this week is a decent fixture for Matheus Cunha. Potential captaincy option. I'll explain a little bit more about captaincy as we finish and move on now to João Pedro. Southampton at home. Of course, we had a Liverpool fixture last week where Liverpool played Southampton, and Liverpool did struggle a little bit to get going against Southampton, and I don't necessarily see that against Brighton. I think Brighton are such a solid team. Yes, they may concede in this fixture, but I don't have my Brighton defender yet. I think going forward, João Pedro is, like I said, a great catalyst for Brighton. He kind of dictates how things are going to be played for Brighton. And yeah, super, super happy to have him in my team. Had him last week. Did, again, the same as he did against City. And obviously, he done it again against Bournemouth. Goal and assist. Perhaps we see that against Southampton. Or maybe even a little bit more. So this is where I'm going to speak a little bit about my captaincy pecking order right now. If you had to ask me right now, who are you captaining? I would go Salah number 1, João Pedro number 2, Matheus Cunha number 3, Cole Palmer number 4. That would be my order of captaincy. I feel as though, as I've spoke through this video, João Pedro has gotten closer to Salah in terms of that pecking order. I think it's a great sort of option that's going to be differential. I feel as though a few people are going to clearly do that when they see that Southampton at home fixture. They're definitely going to go ahead and click that button just straight away instantly because of the fixture. And that's kind of the reason why I've got it on Mohamed Salah. The fixture is really, really great, especially in terms of like, you know, team matchups, because on transition, I think Liverpool will win that game. When we speak about captaincy order, Cole Palmer being at the bottom and Matheus Cunha being above him, I think partly that is because of the fixture. But Matheus Cunha has been so fantastic recently. So, yeah, those are the options for captaincy this game week. I have the potential of getting rid of Semenyo and bringing in Bukayo Saka. I'm just waiting on a little bit more information around the whole entire team. It is likely, if Bukayo Saka is due a price rise in the next few days, that I will definitely make that Bukayo Saka move early. Of course, the deadline is tomorrow, so it is only tonight I have to wait for Bukayo Saka, and I don't think he's necessarily close to a price rise. We'll see later on this evening, but yeah, have a look out for price rises, by the way, if you're kind of short on money at the moment. But yeah, that is my FPL team for Game Week 13. To outro every video, I always like to give you guys at home a big thank you for supporting the FPL Mugs YouTube channel. Of course, if you have enjoyed today's video, drop a like, and if you aren't yet subscribed, please do consider subscribing for weekly FPL content and deadline streams. But that is everything for today's video. Thank you again so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye for now.